Most people don't have one clean, consistent sense of self. They have parts. A part that wants to grow, a part that wants to hide, a part that wants connection, a part that pushes people away, a part that knows the truth, and a part that is honestly terrified of what the truth might cost them. So if you've ever thought, why do I feel like different versions of myself in different situations? My friends, that may not mean you are confused. And it doesn't mean that you have split personalities. It may mean different parts of you are trying to protect you in different ways. And once you understand that, like many of us, trust and self trust starts to make a lot more sense. Hey there, Evolver. If you have found this channel, you're probably someone who thinks deeply about life, growth, and the human mind. My name is Amelia, and this is a channel where we explore the psychology, neuroscience, and lived experience of what it actually means to evolve as a human being. In my work with individuals, couples, and leaders, this is one of the patterns that I see constantly. People come in thinking that they need to be more disciplined, more confident, more consistent, or even more decisive in their life. And honestly, when we slow it down, what we often find is not a lack of discipline or any of those things I just mentioned. It's inner conflict. One part of them wants one thing. Another part of them is actually afraid of what they want. Another part of them is trying to manage how they're being perceived by everyone else. And another part is exhausted from holding everything together in their life. So the work is not, just how do I force myself to change? If you're an evolver, you're tapping on this video. The deeper question is, what parts of me are involved and what are they trying to protect? So let's set some ground rules here. When I say parts, I'm talking about different internal states, drives, protective strategies, and learned patterns, responses, reactions, if you will, that can become active in different situations. This is not about being broken. This is not about having something wrong with you. And it's really about recognizing that human beings, let's be real, are very complex. We have competing needs inside of us, a need for connection, and a fear of rejection at the same time, a desire to be seen, and a fear of being judged, a longing to grow, and a part that wants to stay safe in what's familiar. This is the human condition, right? That is not a contradiction for the sake of contradiction. That is your system trying to survive, like all of us trying to belong, and like everyone else clicking this video, evolve at the same time. It's not an easy feat. So let's kind of think about what we're talking about in the context, the fabric of, let's say, a relationship pattern. Let's say you're in a relationship and something kind of feels off. One part of you wants to say, after a tiff that you had with your partner, hey, I want to talk about what happened. But another part immediately says, right after that thought, do not bring it up. You're going to be too much. They're going to pull away. Then another part comes in and kind of says in that internal dialogue, no, we need to say something right now. We need to fix this immediately. So now you're not just having a relationship issue. You're having this internal system issue where there's conflict. A part of you wants honesty. A part of you wants safety. Part of you wants control. And another part of you wants connection. And if you don't know how to recognize those parts, you may think, why the heck am I like this? But my friends, the better question is, what is each part of me trying to protect? This connects to everything we've been building at EVE. Your relationship patterns are often parts that are trying to protect you. Your emotional safety is affected by which part feels safe to be seen. Your communication changes truly depending on which part is speaking, or what I like to say to my clients, grasping the helm or the wheel. Your boundaries become harder when one part knows the truth, true, and another part ultimately fears the consequence of what your truth is. And self-trust becomes so freaking difficult when you don't know which part of you that you're listening to. So, parts mapping is something that I'm going to introduce in future videos, and we'll get into it a little bit deeper. But when we think about this, parts mapping, it gives you a way to kind of slow down and understand our inner system before we act from it. Think of those moments where maybe you've been in a professional setting or a leadership setting, because this shows up in leadership too. A leader might know a hard conversation needs to happen. One part of them sees that issue very clearly and likely the trajectory. This standard is slipping. This colleague needs feedback now. This decision cannot continue to be delayed because insert consequences on a ripple effect level. But another part of them is saying, well, if I have the conversation, what if they don't like me? What if I'm being too harsh? I should give this guy a break. What if this creates conflict? And then who knows, maybe they could leave. Then another part overcompensates and becomes overly direct, cold, or controlling because it's quite literally trying to get the discomfort over now and forever. So again, the issue is not just communication. It's the internal leadership system that we all have. Who, my friend, is leading inside of you? Is it the grounded, clear self, or the part that is trying to avoid rejection, conflict, or a loss of control? And this is where the concept of true self becomes not just important. From my personal experience and my professional experience, it becomes vital. Your true self is not the loudest part. On the quite contrary, is not the most reactive part. It is not the part that is performing, that is protecting you, that is controlling, that pleases, that hides, or that over-explains. Although, wouldn't that make it a lot easier? The true self actually is the place that is inside of you, that you can witness all of those parts that I just mentioned without being entirely consumed by them. That's, again, kind of why I like to picture that helm, right? I picture a ship, and the person who is driving the ship at the helm of the ship, charting the course. Or if you want to picture a car, the person who is driving the car, all the other parts are in the back seat or in the shotgun. It is the part of you that can say, I see the part of me that is scared. I see the part of me that wants to run. I see the part of me that wants approval, and I see the part of me that wants to shut down. Maybe it's a moment with your wife who you've been married to for 21 years, and you notice every single time she tries to bring something up to improve your relationship, you shut down. Maybe it's like that leadership example that I had. Maybe it's another example with your friends. So this true self, instead of judging those parts, what does it do instead? It gets curious. Curiosity is an indicator that your true self is driving. And self-leadership begins when you stop letting the loudest part of you run your entire system. A very everyday example is decision-making, because let's be real, this is where it really matters today. This is where I'm going to invite you into taking action to build everyday self-trust for you. Let's say you're trying to decide whether to say yes to something. Let's say it's a team meeting. Let's say I'll give an example of a client who went through this last week. Colleagues going to a happy hour when that's the last thing she wants to go to. One part says, say yes. She gets that invitation. Say yes. Don't disappoint them. But another part of her came up because she's someone who is training for high rocks and has competition, and she's really working on her wellness and fitness. She says, no, I'm exhausted. I just worked a full week. I don't want to go to happy hour. But another part of her came and said, well, if I say no, they'll think that I don't care, that I don't take our work seriously. And these networking events are cornerstone to my job. And then another part of her comes in and says, I always do this. Why can't I just be clear? Most people try to solve that before forcing an answer. It's so sneaky. And our problem solver parts love answering this. But parts mapping asks you to pause and say, okay, time out. Who's here? Not what is wrong with me. You notice that shift from curiosity, who's here, to who's, what's wrong with me? Curiosity away from pathology. But what parts are active right now? This is where we're getting even more nuance. That one question can change everything. And trust me, my friends, it does. It is proven time and time again. So let's go through the 3-step parts mapping process that I use with so many individuals. Step 1, let's name that part. You might say, there's a part of me that wants to please. There's a part of me that's afraid. There's a part of me that wants to just disappear and do what my clients say, Irish goodbye. There is a part of me that wants control. Step 2, ask what it's protecting. Most parts are not trying to ruin your life. I wish it was that simple, but they're really not. They're trying to prevent pain. They're trying to prevent rejection, humiliation, abandonment, fear, conflict, shame. So this is when we turn to step number 3. Step number 3 is returning to yourself before responding in a situation like that. That means you don't let the activated part make that decision immediately. Instead, like we've been talking about in past videos, if you've been putting in the work, what are we going to do instead? We're going to pause. You breathe. You get curious. Picture that light bulb in your head. And then you ask yourself, what would I choose if I didn't have to abandon any part of myself in order to move forward? This matters because real growth is not just behavior change. It is internal systems change. If you only change the behavior on the outside without understanding the protective system underneath it, the pattern usually comes back again and again in another form. Trust me, it's like whack-a-mole. It's brutal. And then you start thinking that something's wrong with you because you're trying this, but it's showing up there. And then you're trying that, and then it shows up there. That is why insight alone does not often create transformation. I wish it were the case, but it's just not the case. You need awareness, you need regulation, you need emotional safety, and you need self-trust. And ultimately, you need a way to understand the parts of you that learned how to survive, because that's the deeper work. That's what a lot of people are referring to right now as the inner work. A lot of people think healing means getting rid of parts of themselves, cutting them off, chopping them off, and leaving them behind. But I don't see it that way. Healing is not deleting parts. It is learning how to lead them. The goal is not to shame the part that people pleases, or punish the part that shuts down, or even reject the part that wants control. Trust me, those parts are there and have learned these survival strategies because they had to. Instead, the goal is to understand what those parts are trying to do for you in their protective strategy, in their survival strategy, because they got you here, right? But what got you here is not going to get you there. And then we want to help them trust that they don't have to run your life alone anymore. So, if you've ever felt like different versions of yourself showing up in different situations, you are not necessarily inconsistent. And if you need this today, I'm here to give this to you. You may simply, beautifully, imperfectly be unintegrated. And the path forward is not forcing one version of you to win. It is learning how to listen, how to understand, and how to lead the whole system, the whole inner system from the inside out. Because you do not become whole by rejecting parts of yourself. You become whole by learning how to relate to every part of you with clarity, compassion, and leadership. So friends, thank you for joining me here at EVE. I'm excited to delve even deeper into parts mapping with you so that you can become the steward of your own ship. And if you want to dig a little bit deeper, you want to actually go a little bit further in the specific practical application in your world, join me and other evolvers at EVE Reflections, where we will dig into this together as a community, where you're not alone and where you are working on this with other evolvers. Click the link in the show notes. You'll get access to that. And I'm excited to continue this work together as we evolve together. Take care, everyone. Until next time, keep evolving.